current priorities of the college?
The emphasis right now is really looking specifically at how we can get payment reform. The sustainable growth rate is something that's been a thorn in all of our sides for a long time, and it appears that there's a movement to eliminate the SGR. It requires some alternative payment method, and the College of Surgeons has invested tremendous amounts of time and energy in coming up with a different form of payment, and they call it a value-based update payment. And over a transition period of somewhere between 5 and 10 years, the thought is that we will continue, at least for episodes of care with surgeons, to pay in a more traditional fee-for-service method. However, in order to achieve your payment and qualify potentially for bonuses, there will be incentives for you to have quality reporting and to continue with meaningful use with electronic health records.
Great. You think these are progressing nicely, these priorities and reforms? Or?
I'm pleased with the way the college has acted proactively. I was somewhat surprised to hear several of our high-ranking senators describe the Affordable Care Act as a train wreck. So I'm hoping that we can, through work and through thoughtful processes, actually make it better.
What has being a member of the college meant to you?
In the beginning, as a resident, I enjoyed going to the clinical congress, and that was what got me excited. And in particular, it seemed that the surgical forum at that time was an opportunity for folks to present as residents some of their more interesting data. I then became a fellow later and was asked to be on the advisory council as the young urology representative. And of course, looking at my hair now, you know, that was a century ago. But I continued to work through the advisory council on the program committee, became a member of the program committee, and ultimately was elected to a position as an officer of the college. So it's been a very long time of service for me. I've enjoyed it, and I think that as I've now gotten to this point in my career, I find that trying to look at some of these global issues that affect surgeons is something that's fascinating, and it's great to be a student again.
Great. You described the clinical congress. How does the clinical congress attract urologists?
We've worked very hard to try and give content in the clinical congress that would be appealing to urologists. We also try to schedule some things that might potentially have appeal to folks who operate in fields similar to us, pelvic trauma being a good example of how orthopedic surgeons enjoy coming and seeing that. Incontinence attracts our specialists in OBGYN, undescended testicle brings in pediatric surgeons. So we do try and become somewhat Catholic in the sense of that word meaning universal in the appeal. But I think the things that have been done recently that are important are scheduling a track so that you wouldn't have to come and spend the entire clinical congress to get the urology content. And we schedule it for you so that you can move easily from one urology track activity to another.
What services outside the annual meeting does the college offer to urologists?
The major offerings that I would say are the advocacy efforts that go on in Washington on behalf of all surgeons. The college has 77,000 members, and as a consequence, we rightfully can think of ourselves as being the house of surgery. So the advocacy efforts are things that you partake of by simply being a member. Over and above that, I think there's tremendous educational benefits that can be obtained. And there are certain things that you need in surgery that aren't specific to urology. And these would be things related to perioperative care, fluids, electrolytes, pain management, patient safety. All of these are examples of educational offerings that can be accessed by fellows. And it's a very robust educational platform for folks to get that information if they would like. There are also, I think, amazing insurance programs that are available for physicians. And some of the premiums on these plans compare extremely favorably with things that are normally available to surgeons. So that's an example. The activities of the college are so broad and so deep as it relates to all of their activities, trauma being an example, and how they worked very hard to create certification of trauma centers, not just in the U.S., but around the world. And the courses that they teach there are amazing in terms of what they've done to prepare people for those kinds of injuries and disasters. So I think the biggest appeal to urology really relates to education and advocacy. And the last thing I would mention is we continue to work on tort reform, and that's something that I think all surgeons are very eager and enthused about.
Right. I, certainly being a fellow of the college has meant a lot to me in my career. I'm very grateful. Can you comment on the process to become a fellow of the college?
The process really requires you to undergo a peer review within your locale. And we have committees that we set up around the country. Once you've submitted your credentials to the college and demonstrated your board certification, you then can meet with the local committee who interviews you. A recommendation is then made, and ultimately you are conferred into fellowship at the annual clinical congress.
Very good. Let's get into a little specifics. So perhaps how would you, what are the key benefits, let's say, for the practicing urologist compared to the academic urologist? And then, is there a role for non-physician providers in attending college meetings or services?
I'll take those questions in order, and I think that the practicing urologist is someone that I think needs the help of organizations like the college and the AUA more than anyone. I grew up in South Dakota. The population density there is quite different than major urban centers like we find ourselves in here. And the College of Surgeons and the AUA are able to represent the activities of people who are providing clinical care. And in particular, I think for urologists who are in private practice, the efforts that are being made at preserving a reasonable degree of compensation for surgeons are critical. David Hoyt, who is the executive director of the College of Surgeons, will testify tomorrow morning in front of the House Ways and Means Committee on Health. And he will argue that it's critically important for physicians and surgeons in particular to know ahead of time from an expense standpoint that they're going to be receiving certain levels of payment. And he's going to argue, I think, and I hope effectively, against penalties so that what will happen is for episodes of care there'll be a guaranteed base, and then for better outcomes and participation in certain other activities you can get bonus payments. And they will also be tied to some form of an index that moves your payment along if the cost of living and your practice expense goes up.
Okay. Any comments for academic urologists, perhaps?
The activities for academic urologists in the college are almost limitless. The Board of Governors has been realigned in terms of different groups with different perspectives and different assignments. And the college really welcomes specialty surgeons. We are viewed very favorably in urology, and I think that has a lot to do with Dr. McAninch and his long service to the college, and Howard Snyder, both who've done wonders in terms of promoting urology within the college. And we're served extremely well right now by our advisory council, which you're on, in terms of providing programmatic themes and activities at the clinical congress that make it especially attractive for academic urologists and residents and fellows.
Great, great. So to wrap up, make your best case for a young urologist who's on a tight budget. Why should they choose membership in the college?
I think the educational opportunities that you can access now easily through the web are number one. Number two is the college is working very hard to make it possible for you to participate in a certain specific registry through the college, which should do tremendous amounts to satisfy PQRI, MOC, maintenance of certification, and MOL, maintenance of licensure. So I think that a membership in a college for these young urologists will provide an easier opportunity for them to meet the growing and continuing certifications, accreditations, and documentations that are necessary.